There's pressure there on Cameron Green to deliver because Webster bailed Australia out of trouble a couple of times, notably with the bat, also did a solid job with the ball. So, look, I can't argue with their decision to pick Cameron Green. I think it's the correct one. But there's pressure on him to stand up, and this really needs to be a big series for him.
Well, here at Perth Stadium on the eve of the first Ashes Test, it has been a long and at times arduous build-up, but we are finally here. It's exciting. I'm joined by Ben, who's come across from the eastern seaboard over east. And Ben, how are you feeling ahead of what's a big occasion tomorrow?
A little weary, I guess, after the journey, but can't wait. So excited, not just to see you, Dan, but I think it is going to be a cracking series. And just the build-up's been so long, it's just good to have the match here, I think, and it's time to get it on.
It is one of the shames about Test series to a degree, in the sense that the build-up is so long, and then the way series are these days, it's so compact that it's sort of over before you know it. And it will be over before we know it. I know it's hard to feel, it doesn't feel like that right now, but 7-8 weeks and we'll be talking about what happened. But before that does happen, let's get into the team news, because Australia has settled their team. England has just about settled their team. How about we start with the Aussies, Ben?
Yeah, well, I was reading about this on the plane when you broke the story a few hours before the press conference. And look, I guess it was what we expected with Beau Webster out of the team, but it's still a massive call. I mean, Beau Webster has done a very fine job, to say the least, since he came in the Sydney Test last year. And, you know, I think it instantly puts a lot of pressure on Cameron Green, who's, you'd have to say, directly replacing him at number 6, even though Cameron Green was in Australia's last 11. There's pressure there on Cameron Green to deliver because Webster bailed Australia out of trouble a couple of times, notably with the bat, also did a solid job with the ball. So, look, I can't argue with their decision to pick Cameron Green. I think it's the correct one. But there's pressure on him to stand up, and this really needs to be a big series for him.
Undoubtedly, the sort of boy becoming a man, I think, has sort of been a prevailing theme for a while now for Cameron Green. I think it has reached crunch time on that front. I think one point that I thought was really interesting from Steve Smith's press conference on that front, when you talk about particularly the Beau Webster omission, he was asked specifically about Webster, and he started talking about Marnus, and Marnus Labuschagne at number 3. Yeah. And I think that's one of the points that really needs to be made, that, you know, they could have gone in with Marnus opening and left Jake Weatherald out and picked Cameron Green and Beau Webster in the same 11, and it wouldn't have been beyond the realms of possibility. And Marnus Labuschagne has opened in Test cricket before. He's opened a fair bit in first-class cricket before. It's not completely foreign to him. But they know, or certainly, they feel, we won't know until after the series is played out, they really feel strongly that Marnus Labuschagne, at his best, which he looks like he's back to his best, or certainly his domestic form's been imperious, back to his best, at number 3, makes this team hum. It's what Usman Khawaja's been saying for a while now, Steve Smith as well, and that engine room of, I don't know if the engine room, whichever simile you want to use, 3, 4, 5, Labuschagne, Smith, Head, going well, makes an enormous difference to this team. And now they just wait to see if it pans out. What about England? We were expecting news pretty shortly on their final 11, but they've named a 12, and it looks like a fair chance of playing 4 quicks.
Yeah, look, that certainly seems to be the vibe. Talking to the English press and just looking at the side that they've picked, I guess Bashir is there in case they turn up on the morning and suddenly it looks like it might be a different sort of deck. But I think that they're worried about Bashir's ability to hold his own against Australia, which Australia has to take, I think, as a big tick in their advantage, because, you know, it had been signalled a long way out that Bashir would be the spinner for England. So to go in without one is a big gamble. Australia obviously didn't hesitate in picking Nathan Lyon in their lineup. The key now is, can Australia make that point of difference count in the Test? Nathan Lyon didn't really have a big impact on last summer's series. Largely that was because the conditions didn't allow him to. But, you know, Australia will be hoping that this Test goes long enough that Nathan Lyon's bowling from one end can be a factor, and more so on the other side of the equation, that they can keep England out in the field long enough that it's really going to hurt them that they don't have a spinner. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny to think of Joe Root and the big narrative around this series being, is he finally going to break through for 100 in Australia? He's also going to have to be England's frontline spinner. Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to have to bowl quite a few overs. I mean, at the very least, from an overrate perspective, I mean, if you have 5 quicks, not that England cares too much about overrates in the World Test Championship cycle standings, but these are the types of considerations that do come into play. Ben, the other somewhat bizarre talking point from the press conferences a couple of hours ago, and I still can't quite believe it happened, was Steve Smith, who seemingly in a preordained manner, or he looked like he had a few shots that he wanted to fire towards Monty Panesar, and he did. Can you talk us through sort of the backstory to this and what was said?
Yeah, well, it's not what I expected to be talking about the day before the Ashes, but basically Monty Panesar, through a betting agency, put out a press release about a week ago with some pretty heavy words about Steve Smith and urging England to basically use the Sandpaper Gate scandal, which happened almost 8 years ago now, against Steve Smith in a sort of sledging sort of manner, like to make him feel guilty about it, I think is the way it was worded. I mean, I thought the comments were ridiculous and, just sort of bizarre. Look, if I was Steve, I probably would have left it there and not sort of dignified it with a response. But anyway, it's created a bit of a talking point the day before the Ashes.
Who of you in the room has seen Mastermind and Monty Panesar on that? Any of you? Yeah. Well, those of you who have, you'll understand where I'm coming from, and those of you who haven't, do yourself a favour because it's pretty comical. Anyone that believes that Athens is in Germany.
Which city is the Olympia Stadion built for the 1972 Olympics and where Germany's national football team played international matches until 2001? Oh, gosh. Athens? Munich.
That's a start. Oliver Twist is a season of the year.
In an 1819 poem, what season of the year does Keats describe as a season of mists and mellow fruitfulness? Oliver Twist. Autumn.
And America is a city.
In which city is the television comedy series Cheers set? America. Boston.
Doesn't really bother me, those comments. So, that's as far as I'll go with that one.
Yeah, he's fired back. He's drawn reference to a British quiz show from years ago in which Monty gave some rather not great answers to some questions. Some general knowledge was slightly lacking there from Monty. Very, very strange. The good news for Monty, at least, or maybe for Steve, is that obviously because Monty's associated with a betting company, he won't be appearing on the ABC this summer, which was a story that you might have heard about Glenn McGrath in the last few days. So that's my poor attempt at humour. Ben, just in terms of, just to sort of finish up, the build-up here for the series, I know you haven't been on the ground for long here, but just more broadly, nationally, internationally, how does it feel? I mean, that's one thing. Ben Stokes was asked about the legacy piece here for Bazball, and so long since England won one Test series here in almost 40 years. Is there an opening here for them, and what will this mean for both sides, whichever way it falls?
Well, I mean, the door could not be any more open for England to come into the first test without Pat Cummins and Josh Hazlewood at the other end of the mark, so to speak. England has to see that as a huge advantage. I mean, it's no disrespect to Brendan Doggett or Scott Boland, but you take out the two of the three best bowlers in the attack, it has to be a plus for England. I still believe what I've thought all along, that this test is bigger for England than it is for Australia.
Yep.
I think if England lose this test in Perth, I just don't think they can win the series. But should they win in Perth, it really does put things back on Australia, and it's game on there. And Australia then possibly get pressured into decisions. Do they change the lineup at the top of the order? Does Pat Cummins get rush back? So I shouldn't say rush back because they're saying he could be right for Brisbane. But I think if they ideally had the time up their sleeve, they may save him till the third test. So all these things sort of come into play. So I think it's bigger for England. I think it's been a strange build-up. Like, we're all saying this is the biggest build-up ever to an Ashes, but it's been a little ho-hum in terms of neither of the two sides have been throwing any gas on the fire. But I think once we actually get started, it'll head up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's very odd that the Barbs have been left to Monty Panesar. He's been the biggest pantomime villain. Even Stuart Broad sort of half behaved himself since that worst side since 2010, 2011. He sort of tried to talk himself back from there. Anyway, it's great to be here nonetheless. Always a privilege to cover any Ashes series. So we're looking forward to bringing it to you. And thanks for joining us.